Welcome back, and this is the Nafeesa Dangor Show, where, of course, we're enticing you in many positive directions. And talking about positivity, there's a young gentleman who's been, of course, doing really positive things out there and changing things for the better for us to look at a different perspective of politics as such. Zahid Jadwat is, of course, passionate. He's a media personality. His determined aspiration has resulted in his podcast called The Special Focus, becoming a fully fledged show, which is being aired, of course, right here on Salam Media. Zahid has interrogated critical topics. He has led meaningful conversations around poverty, inequality, corruption, and leadership, which have contributed positively to the media space in South Africa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and to yourself and to your listeners.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Nafeesa Dangor Show. It's always a pleasure having you on.
It is indeed a pleasure to be on your show once again.
Yes, and I mean, we're so excited to want to hear what your show is featuring this evening. Talk to us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so it has been a rough start to this week. If you are living in South Africa, of course, you would know the recent developments in Brackenfell. There's been violent protests where EFF members, the EFF, of course, the Economic Freedom Fighters Party, their members have clashed with community members in Brackenfell, outside the Brackenfell High School, and that's in the Western Cape. Apparently, they are alleging that there's elements of racism at the school. This, of course, after a certain event took place at a wine estate, if I understand correctly, not at the school, but it was a matric event. The Western Cape Education Department having come out to say that this was actually a private event, but the EFF's concern here was that there were only white students invited to this event, and two teachers from the school were invited to this event as well. So that's what the furore is about. So really, at this moment, we do not exactly know what the situation is, whether there is what exactly is the situation at the school. Is there really an element of racism at the school? But keep in mind, this has been a private function, so it could have been an element of racism in the private, the organizers, and so that's what the EFF is basically upset about. And so we are going to be speaking to them this evening on the show at about 7 p.m. We're going to kick off the show. We're going to speak to Melikaya Tejo. He's the provincial chairperson of the Economic Freedom Fighters. He's going to be speaking to us about what the EFF is upset about, and we're trying to find out what are their grievances and how are they going to actually move forward with this, in the time to come ahead. And after we speak to him, we are going to be joined, of course, by Mr. Jamira Mohopa. He's a socio-political commentator at Politics South Africa. He's been on the show quite often as well, and some real good analysis coming from him. So he's going to be speaking to us about this very same subject, and just giving us a deeper understanding as to where this fits within the broader discussion in South Africa when it comes to racial tensions and violent protests, etc. And then to just go deeper into this discussion about violent protests.
Right.
So protests have often turned violent as South Africans become increasingly frustrated with poverty, crime, corruption, service delivery, and other issues. You know what they are. Living in South Africa, there are many of these issues which we still deal with in the post-apartheid era. And so we are going to be speaking exclusively to Professor Adam Habib. He's the Vice Chancellor of the Wits University, and he's going to be speaking to us about the role of protests within a democracy, and how do these protests escalate, how should we respond, etc. So that's going to be a real interesting discussion coming up at 7:30, and we'll have him right up until 8 p.m. And of course, I'd like to say from now, next week we have already planned a really good guest, but I think the listeners, the audience should tune in to find out what that is, but that's coming next week. But that's basically your rundown for this evening.
You've really definitely got us thinking now. So we're excitedly waiting for tonight and then anticipating next week already, Zahid.
Yes, lots of anticipation. If I could give you a hint, I think the Pretoria people will love this discussion next week. They are really going to have lots of questions for my guest as well, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Thank you so much for joining us. We're definitely looking forward to tonight's discussion and including next week as well. And we'll chat to you, inshallah, next week once again. Have a lovely one.
You too as well. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
The pleasure was mine. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was Zahid Jadwat shedding some light on, of course, special focus, discussing issues pertaining to the Brackenfell situation there. So get enticed into listening to him between 7 and 8 o'clock this evening. From myself, Nafeesa Dangor, and the team, we want to wish you nothing but a wonderful evening. We had a splendid afternoon with very inspirational people. Stay enticed with us tomorrow afternoon between 2 and 4 the same time. And from myself and the Salam Media team, we say Assalamu alaikum. Have a lovely one. But we're going to end off with a really inspirational one. And this one we're telling you is going to give you some good food for thought. We have a poem by Fear by Krista O'Reilly. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.